On October 18, 2025, something remarkable happened across America. Nearly 7 million people walked out of their homes and into the streets. They gathered in big cities and small towns. More than 2,700 events were planned in all 50 states. The message was simple and powerful. It was written on signs. It was chanted in unison. The message was no kings. Protesters felt the president was acting more like a monarch than an elected leader. This massive turnout, even larger than a similar protest in June, showed a deep and growing unease in the country. It was a day when millions of Americans decided their voices needed to be heard together. This was not a spontaneous outburst. It was carefully organized. Groups like the ACLU, Move On American Federation of Teachers, helped plan the events. The first No Kings rally happened months earlier, in June. It was a response to President Trump's plan for a large military parade for his birthday. That first protest drew millions, but the October protest was even bigger. Organizers said nearly 2 million more people joined this time. So, what specific actions drove these millions of people into the streets? One major reason was the deployment of federal troops in American cities. Many saw this as a military crackdown on dissent. It felt like an overreach of executive power. People were also alarmed when the administration labeled certain drug traffickers as terrorists. This change in language gave the government new powers. It allowed for actions that many felt were too extreme for domestic issues. These moves created a sense of fear. People worried that the tools of war were being turned inward, against American citizens and communities. Another source of deep concern was the president's use of pardons. Critics pointed out that many pardons were granted to political allies. This created the impression that the president was using his power to protect his friends from the law. For many protesters, this undermined the principle of equal justice. It suggested there was one set of rules for the powerful and another for everyone else. That feeling the system was being rigged fueled the anger that brought people out to protest. They saw it as a leader placing himself above the law. Immigration policies were also a central focus of the demonstrations. The administration had taken a very aggressive approach. Large-scale ICE raids, separation of families at the border, expansion of detention centers. These actions were seen by many as cruel and inhumane. Demonstrators voiced their outrage, signs calling for an end to family separations, signs calling for more compassionate treatment of immigrants. For many, the government's immigration strategy was a moral failure. Despite the large numbers, the protests were overwhelmingly peaceful. Police in many large cities reported no major incidents or arrests. This was a key goal for the organizers. They wanted the focus to remain on the message, not on conflict. The day was a powerful display of civil disobedience. People from all walks of life came together. Families with children, students, seniors. They were united by a shared purpose: to safeguard the country's democratic values. The peaceful nature of the demonstrations made their message even more powerful. The tone of the day was serious, but it was also filled with creativity and even humor. Many protesters wore costumes to make their point. Some dressed as the Statue of Liberty. Others wore satirical outfits, using humor to criticize the president and his policies. The signs were often clever and witty. They used jokes and puns to highlight the absurdity of the situation. The president's reaction added another layer to the story. He largely dismissed the demonstrations. He claimed they were small and insignificant, despite the massive turnout. On social media, he shared a series of images, some AI-generated. Immigration was at the heart of the day's tensions. To understand the protests, we have to understand the deep divide on this issue. For many Democrats and their supporters, immigration is a question of economics and a question of morality. They argue that immigrants, including those without legal status, play a vital role in the American economy. They work in agriculture. They work in construction. They work in hospitality, often doing jobs that are hard to fill. A Pew Research survey found that 78% of Democrats believe the administration's harsh policies actually make the U.S. economy weaker. They see immigrants not as a burden, but as contributors to American prosperity. Beyond economics, there is a strong moral argument. Many Democrats believe in treating all people with dignity and humanity. They are opposed to policies like family separation because they see them as cruel and unjust. They also point to America's long history as a nation of immigrants. They believe the country has a responsibility to offer refuge to people fleeing violence and persecution. This is not about open borders. As one Democratic strategist put it, the goal is a clear and cogent policy that is both lawful and humane. This means creating legal pathways for people to stay, especially for those who have lived and worked in the U.S. for years. All these issues combine to create a powerful image. The No Kings protests were about more than any single policy. They were about the very nature of American democracy. They were raising a fundamental question: what are the proper limits of presidential power? They saw a series of actions that, taken together, seemed to threaten the system of checks and balances. That is supposed to prevent any one branch of government from becoming too dominant. Their protest was a massive public defense of constitutional norms. It was a declaration that the people are watching and that they expect their leaders to operate within the established rules. This moment highlights a deep conflict over what it means to be an American. Ultimately, the events of October 18, 2025, serve as a powerful reminder of the role of citizens in a democracy. When people feel that their government is no longer listening or is overstepping its bounds, they have the right to assemble and make their voices heard. They showed that even in a deeply polarized country, people can come together to stand up for the principles they believe in.